Right. Hello. Welcome to this channel again today. My name is Samuel Ajayi. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, that's the first time I'm telling you, you must subscribe. I've finished my PhD now. Now I have time for you to to talk to you to subscribe to the channel. All right, just kidding. But subscribe if you have not subscribed. So today I want to talk about a very important topic. Congratulations to you if you already have your admission and then you are preparing for visa interview. Remember, on this channel I talk mostly about US admissions. So I by extension I can talk about other places too, but of course I talk mostly about US admissions. So if you have been given an admission and you are going for your visa interview, there are questions that you'll be asked. One of the most important questions you'll be asked is a question of who is funding your studies. And I tell you, this is where a lot of candidates mess up. Take it from me, I have done mock interview for a lot of people that have helped to prepare for their visa interview and the likes. And this is where a lot of people find it difficult to answer the question, especially when they are not funded. In fact, I've seen those who are funded, who receive funding, mess up, so to speak, when trying to answer the question who is funding them. Now, when the VO official is asking you who is funding your studies, there are things the VO visa official is trying to look out for. The visa official is trying to look out or check if you can sponsor yourself, if you will not get to the United States and get stranded. So have all this in mind when you're answering the question. The visa official is trying to determine if you will get to the United States and not run away. Okay, because some people, their idea is just, oh, let me just get there, I will sort it out. That is not an answer. That's the mindset of some people. So the visa official is trying to confirm if that is your mindset. Let me just get there, I'll sort it out. Or let me just get there, I'll find a job and then to start augmenting myself and do all of these things and then things will sort itself out. Those are not answers. And the visa official can know from your answer if that is your mentality. So you have to understand why the visa official is asking. And there have been instances in the past where some people get to the United States and then they get stranded. They could not continue with studies and then they had to drop out of school and then they suddenly disappear. So the visa official has that at the back of his or her mind too, that this has happened before in the past. It's what probably still happen. In fact, the school has complained sometimes ago that someone came, an international student, and the student just dropped out and then did not continue studies. Okay, so have this at the back of your mind that the VO is aware of this, and the VO is expecting you to convince him or her that when you get there, you are not part of those who will just say, let me abandon the studies, and then they just suddenly disappear. Now, different category of students will fall into different categories based on what type of grammar did I just say? Different category fall into. Don't mind my grammar, but different things will apply to different candidate based on their school, based on the school they are going for. Now, some students or some candidates will have a school that will have schools that give them full funding, some will have partial funding, and some will have no funding at all. I've seen those type of categories, and I've seen all those categories get approved for their visa, okay, get their visa approved, and they are studying the US. Now, if you are fully funded, the school is funding you totally. And what does full funding means? It means the school is saying we are paying your tuition and we are paying your expenses, living expenses, because the visa official is not only interested in how you are able to pay your tuition, the visa official is also interested in your living expenses. If you will be able to take care of your living expenses, if that will be taken care of. Okay, so there are some schools that will fund everything. They'll pay your tuition, then they give you assistantship, and then if you have watched some of my past videos before, I've talked about assistantship. Maybe it's time to renew them, but they'll give you assistantships. Which simply means that you are working for the school, you are teaching, you are doing whatever, and then once you get the assistantship, they are paying you monthly or bi-weekly. You are getting your money, and then you also have your tuition wait for you. The department or the school has paid your tuition. That's what it basically means. So in that scenario, when the visa official asks you who is funding your studies, you don't even have to talk about the money you have saved. Now I will talk about that. So anyway, because some people have the idea that but you still have to talk about the money you've saved. What you want to reference straight away, because you want to show the visa official that you will not be stranded, that you've been taken care of. What you want to tell the visa official is the fact that you have a full funding from the school, and then they'll be taking care of. Mention those things they are taking care of, which will take care of your tuition and your living expenses, and let them know for the duration of which you have been awarded that for. Okay, so that is enough for the view. And remember, in your I-20, because some people may say, okay, what if I don't have the funding and I tell the VO that I have funding? How will the VO find out? Well, you have submitted your I-20 to the VO, and then under the I-20, there is a part under the I-20 that shows the type of funding you have. The I-20 will show where your funding is coming from, either personal friend, either from the school, either scholarship, assistantship, whatever. Okay, so your I-20 will tell that detail. Your I-20 will give that information. So you can't say, well, I'll just lie to the viewer and say I have full funding, whereas what is in your I-20 is very different. Okay, so if you have full funding, mention to the VO that you have full funding from the school or from the department, and then they are funding. Mention those things that have been funded. Full tuition waiver, you have a full tuition waiver, and then your living expenses, very important. Don't just say tuition. Your living expenses is taken care of. Now, I've seen a lot of people in this category, everything taken care of. And usually it's easier for the VO to accept that because they know it's a source of funding that is coming from the school, and they can bank on it, or you can bank on it. Like, they can bank on it that you will not be stranded and you will not leave your studies and then go around and start doing other things. So they are sure that you'll be able to face your studies because the funding is coming from a very sure source, which is your school. And for me, I love if everyone can, as many people that are going for visa interview, if they can have full funding going there, it makes your life easier. It makes everything you are saying way easier. It makes you believable. It even gives the VO the impression that you must be a very smart student to receive this amount of funding, $50,000. It's not a joke. So it gives that VO that mentality that you know what you are doing. Okay, it gives them that mentality that you know what you are doing. You are really good at what you do, for you to be able to get that type of funding. But not everybody will get full funding, right? There are sometimes some people get partial funding. Now, example of partial funding would be a school that gives you a scholarship and says the scholarships take care of your tuition. Okay, but you are not paid, you are not given anything when it comes to living expenses. Okay, so in this situation, I've seen people in this situation before. Now, what people do in such situation when they get here is that the school is taking care of their fund, of their tuition, and they just have to, because you have 20 hours to work as a graduate student. You can work 20 hours on campus. So many students just work on campus. Some work in the gym, library, work, all those campus things that they can do, and they get their funding to their money to take care of their living expenses. However, I advise people when you are going for the visa interview, have something to show that you at least have raised money for your own living expenses. So you don't want to get there and tell them, my school takes care of my scholarship, but when I get there, I will work, and then I will do 20 hours work on campus so that I can sort my living expenses. That's not a good answer, at least from my perspective, because you don't even want to say anything related to work to the viewer at all. The viewer can misunderstand you and think you're talking about working outside, working. You don't even want to mention anything that has to do with work. I've seen people who were in this category, in this situation, and someone was telling me that I'll just tell the viewer I'll work and raise the money for my I will raise the money for my living expenses, blah blah. You don't want to say that at all, please. It's not an answer. It's not a good answer at all. What you want to do with the visa official is that first thing is to emphasize the scholarship which you have first and foremost. Don't. It's a big deal. Okay, some people are so hung up on the fact that, oh, it's not a full funding, this and that is not full, and then they start talking about that during the interview. No, you want to first and foremost hammer the fact that you have that scholarship that covers either 50% or that covers your tuition. So if you ask you, how are you going to cover, who is going to be paying for your studies, or who will be funding your studies? First thing you want to say is that, thank you, I have a scholarship from the schools that covered my full tuition, and then the deficit is blah, blah, blah. Or you can just say the deficit will be covered by, and then you mention yourself that you've saved funding over time, or you have an uncle, or you have a brother, or you have a sister, or father, or family who has helped you with money, and then that deficit will be covered by that. But you want to emphasize first and foremost that you have a scholarship that will be covering your tuition. Okay, you want to cover that part first and foremost. Let the visa official know that there is a scholarship. Emphasize it very well, because that is one of your selling points, that you even have a scholarship. It's a big deal. It's not everyone that has scholarships, right? But you have that scholarship that at least covers something. So you want to emphasize that part. And of course, when you are going, you want to prepare ahead of time with bank statement, either your own bank statement, that at least show that you have something in your account to cover that. Or if it's your parent that are covering that for you, you want to go with their bank statement to show that you have something that covers that. Very, very, very important. Now, some people we have scholarship of like 50%. Let's say the whole scholarship, well, the tuition is not even covered. Let's say some people maybe they just said 50% basically. That's in terms of stipend, in terms of tuition coverage, this and that. You still want to emphasize that, okay, that you have, if they call it assistantship, whatever they call it in your I-20, mention it. If they say assistantship, mention if I have an assistantship that covered a total 50% of my this, and then my living expenses and the likes. Mention that thing, and then mention that the deficits will be covered by, you'll be covering deficit, or the deficit will be covered by XYZ. Jeremiah, I see you. I will come back to your question, or how you can contact me, Jeremiah. So you can come back to that fact that it will be covered by whatever is left, to be covered by yourself or your uncle. Now, in a situation where you don't have funding at all, you want to make sure that you are able to prove, okay, that you'll be able to cover it. And again, I don't usually recommend, if someone is just saying, yeah, I just need someone to give me a bank statement, when I get here I will sort myself. It's not really a good idea, okay, because when you get here you realize that it takes a lot to be able to raise that money. It's not a small money. Some people say, I will take a job. People who would be working here in that category may be working on, uh, because you are coming straight from Nigeria. It's not as if you get a big job. Most people will be doing on that table job. And then it's not as if you have a work visa and the likes, all those things. As a student, you just have 20 hours to work. You can't raise big money that way. So I want to play that first and foremost and say, if you really don't have the money, and you are not giving funding at all, and you really don't have the money, you have no way to pay it from home, like you really have no idea, I would say don't go look for other schools that may fund you. But if you have the funding, so all you just need to do is to prove to the visa official that you have the money to pay the tuition. Of course, the visa official will look at other things, your status, what you do, the type of job you do. The visa official will most likely ask questions in that line. If it's coming from your parents, the visa official will ask most likely, what do your parents do? Okay, now it becomes more difficult when you start saying, is the uncle of my brother, of my cousin somewhere far away, will be paying for me. Things becomes complicated there, because the visa official is trying to think, why will this person want to invest $50,000 on you per year? $50,000 is not a small money. And remember, you can say, oh, but the tuition is just 20,000, and then there's nothing just 20,000. 20,000 is a big money, but let's just use it that way. So the tuition is just 20,000. So my uncle will not be spending up to 50,000. The visa official is not thinking only about tuition, he's also thinking living expenses. Okay, everything must be sorted out fully. So you want to go with that mindset that this is what the visa officer is looking for, and then you want to be able to say that this is this person that is sponsoring me. We have that relationship. This person can sponsor me based on the relationship we have. It's very understandable when the person is your dad. It's very understandable when the person is your spouse. It's very understandable when it is you. I've seen someone who went to the visa to the visa interview, and it was the I think it was uncle. Yeah, I think our uncle. Our uncle gave her the bank statement. Okay, and then it was her uncle that was meant to sponsor her. Eventually, when the person got here in the US, the person got funding, right? The person got funding from the department. But right from Nigeria, it was the uncle, and the uncle was here in the US, so it was short, so to speak. Is it uncle or cousin? I can't remember, but it was sure to an extent that the visa official at least was convinced that this is a bank statement that has the money, this is it, this uncle. And the person was convincing. The person was doing something beautiful in Nigeria too that has to do with research. Now, all of these things play into each other because they want to see what are you doing? Is this person really passionate about it? Let's say someone who is working in let's say a lab in Nigeria, for example, where they treat blood, do blood tests, do all this. Now the person wants to go and study more on biological, blah blah blah, gene simulation, blood, all those things. The visa officer is linking everything together. So even when you say, "Oh, it's my uncle," the visa officer is still to an extent because the visa officer has been convinced about what you do, what you want to go and do, right? And it's linking it. Okay, maybe we can give a benefit of doubt. So those things play into each other. So this person I know was able to get it, even though she mentioned that it was, I think uncle or cousin now the two. Okay, but this person got it. So it's not like when you don't have the funding, it is straight death sentence. But uh, my own take is usually that make sure there is something in place for the money to come. Don't just say I will just get a bank statement, and once I have the bank statement, I'll just go and tell them something, and when I get to the United States, I'll sort out myself. It's not easy. You can do that for some countries, but not United States because the tuition are usually expensive, and there is a limitation on how much you can work as a student. Okay, there is a big limitation on how much you can work as a student. So you don't want to fall into that category. You don't want to. Some countries here you can raise it. In some countries, Portugal, for example, some of their tuition are very cheap, like really, really cheap. You can't compare it to the United States. And some countries don't have the rules of you can a limitation on how much you can work in that sense. Some countries you can work 40 hours. In the US, the rule says 20 hours. In fact, if you have a spouse, your spouse cannot work. In some countries, when you have a spouse, your spouse can work. So you are working 20 hours, your spouse is working 40 hours, and then you both are raising the tuition. It's possible in some countries. But when it comes to the United States, it's really not possible. Okay, and that's why I'm hammering on this because we've seen situations where people will just land and then there is no hope. They really don't know what to do, and people fall into depression. I've seen it. People fall into depression like because there's no way they want to pay their tuition. So you don't want to fall into that category. Now, one question I should also quickly tackle is a question of bank statement. Where can the bank statement come from? Okay, somebody said, "Can my wife be my sponsor?" Yes, that's a very close relationship. That's a very beautiful relationship. Your wife can be a sponsor if the money is there. Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, where should the bank statement, for example, come from? It can come from you, right? Of course, it can come from your wife. It can come from whoever is sponsoring you. Remember, the relationship is important. Why is this person sponsoring you? You must be able to answer that. Why is this person sponsoring you? Why is this person spending $50K on you? Okay. If you are not the person's child, if you are not the person's very important half or something, it's really difficult to justify that. Now, must the bank statement be from Nigeria or your country, or it can also be from the United States? It can also be from the United States. I've seen people, okay, who used bank statement from their relatives, close relatives in the United States. Now, that brings another question. I know this is not about funding. The question is not about funding. The question is, what happens if I have a relative in the United States? Does that mean I will be disqualified automatically? No. Okay. The status of your relative is very important. The status of your relative, what your relative is doing is very important. Okay. Did your relative go on B1 visa and then they just didn't hear from your relative again? That would be dangerous for you. Okay, even though the relative has his own life, you can fight it out and say, it's an adult, the person made the decision, but that will not affect the decision you are making. You are old enough to make your own decision, blah blah. But it affects. Sometimes the viewer will not even just tell you why you are being denied. Okay, so the question is, should you? I'll leave you to answer that. How do you who do you include as a relative, or who is not your relative? How do you sort that out when you are filling the DS-160 form? But those things affect. So what your relative is doing, all those things. Now, if you have a relative who is on good status, who is doing well, everything is nice, everything is clean, no shady thing, you can use their bank statement. And the person is close to you, so there is a reason or why the person has compelling reasons to pay for your tuition or to help you to in that regard. Yes, you can use that relative, especially when they are close relative. I just mentioned that I know someone who used their relative in the US, got the bank statement from the relative, and the person was able to get it right. So those things are very, very, very possible. But the relative is not someone that you can vibe, that you can beat your chest for. That I won't suggest you do that. Okay, I won't suggest you do that, because what your relative is doing is very important. And of course, they want to see what the relative is doing. Does the person have money enough to be able to help you and the like? Those are some of the questions they will ask you. If you say, "Oh, this so person is sponsoring me," what what does the person do? Okay, so let me just make a recap, and then I will make an example of how you respond. So the visa official asks you, um, who is sponsoring your studies? If you have funding, you want to go like something like this. I have a full funding from the school, for the Department of Physics. They were funding my studies. I have a full tuition waiver. I have an assistantship that covers my full tuition, and that covers also my living expenses. So you can just summarize my department or the school will paying for my thing. You can mention the amount too, and it goes into the total around $50,000. If you don't have funding, full funding, let's say you have a scholarship from the department, you want to hammer that scholarship, remember. So, they ask you, so who will be funding your studies? You go something like this. Um, the Department of Physics awarded me the presidential scholarship, which funds which takes care of the whole tuition fee, and then the deficit for my living expenses will be taken care of by my sister. She's a mention what she does. She's a consultant, a lead consultant at so hospital in Lagos, and then this and that. So you also want to mention something like that, but you have put emphasis on on the scholarship you receive. Mention the presidential scholarship or Dean's Kinnicon scholarship or Kinnicon scholarship. Mention those things, okay? You want to really show the VO, like you want to brag to the VO a bit in quotes, like to VO to see that there's value in you. Now, if you don't have funding at all, you want to go something like, oh, so who is funding your studies? You want to go? I'll be funding my studies. I was working as a lead engineer for Globacom Telecoms for 8 years, and I've had 20 million saved ahead of time for my studies, because I knew I'll be going for my studies in the United States, and then my living expenses. I have all this saved all together. So you can pass your bank statement and then just mention all those things. If it will be your brother, you want to say, my brother will be funding my studies. He works as a this and this and that and that, and he mentioned the fact that you have a very solid relationship. He has always he's funded my studies all through my undergraduate days, and then he's also willing to fund my studies for this graduate program. And he has a business. Mentioned the business which has different, what do you call it now? Different what's the word? Different branches in different countries. Blah blah. Just mention those things. Of course, you don't want to lie, but put them in a good light. Put your if you see if you are the one sponsoring yourself, put yourself in a good light. Mention those good things about what you do, analyze how money is coming to you. So you want to really show the view that you can take care of yourself. That's basically what you want to do. All right, let me just take some of this because Jeremiah, how do you contact me for mock interview? If you look through this channel, search through it, you should be able to find my email or on Twitter. You can contact me. Let me know when your visa interview is when you contact me, either through Twitter or through my email from this channel. When you search through this channel, you find my email. Contact me. We can do something for you. We can schedule a mock interview for you. And yeah. So if you have any question, you can ask, and then if not, let me wait for 1 minute. If anyone has any question to ask. All right. If there's no question, I think there's a good time to stop. Thank you so much for joining in today. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed. Subscribe. You're doing a bad thing that you're not subscribing. You're doing a bad thing. Send to people that you think should need this. Those who are going for interview very soon. Send it to them. I've been receiving a lot of very good messages about those who have been impacted uh, by this channel, things they have seen here, and it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. All right, thank you so much for joining today. God bless you. Real good. Have a great evening, great night, depending on where you are.